I would say maybe AI is eating the world and eating software, and companies that will not join the party will not be around.
Ariel, I am so excited for this. It's been quite a few years now. So first, thank you so much for joining me again.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here again, and I'm always listening to you, really interviewing really smart people. And it's really, really interesting to hear you and also Dave kind of talking with you. I recently, I listened to your Jeff Jordan one, and it was really fascinating.
That's very, very kind. I'll pay you later. But we were talking beforehand. You said to me, school and university, you don't really go to that many lectures or lessons. I was just intrigued, why?
It's interesting. I'm the type of person that I am. I can learn stuff by myself, but I can only learn stuff that really, really interests me. And the reality is that I think that most of the things that you learn at school and universities are just not interesting. There are things that, for example, some case studies that you're going to go through, and I could be so much fascinated by that, but then I can go all in. So for me, the way that I can learn, it's only if it interests me. If it's not, I cannot really study it. And that was kind of my school life. I was actually an extremely average student, but it's really average, right? So I could either have really, really, really good straight A, but on the really good side of it, or I would totally fail. And it's really based on the way that kind of maybe my brain works. If it gets my interest, I would geek out and learn everything about it. If it doesn't, you cannot get me even starting to get interested in this.
It's totally the same as me. Gosh, does that impact how you advise your children when it comes to how they pick up and learn new things?
100%. So I have 3 kids. 2 of them, they are twins, a boy and a girl. They are 15, right? So they are starting to think, what would they do next, and so on. And one of the things that I've told them, hey, do whatever you want to, but my advice to you, don't even at age 18 have this pressure to go to college, because I don't think that what you really want to do with your life at age 18. And I know that a lot of people are doing skip year. And I like traveling, and a lot of my conclusions are happening while I'm traveling and meeting people. So my advice to them, what you're going to do with your life and school and all of these things, it will get figured out. But first, kind of, take the time to really learn, to really understand what interests you. And I think that in any case, we are in such an interesting time in our lives with the development, and I know that we're going to talk about it, but with the developments of machine learning and AI. So I'm not even sure that the things that we are learning today are not kind of obsolete. So my advice to them, don't take this too seriously. Do whatever you want to with your lives.
My question is, you said there about kind of things getting outdated in what you learn. I think there are core management principles which stay the same, actually. And I was intrigued, when you look back to streamOnce, your prior company, what management principles did you take with you from there to TripActions that really worked? And what did you go, that didn't work, let's leave them behind?
Yeah, streamOnce was never, an organization that I needed to really scale. So it was very small. We sold it very early after 9 months. We had basically 2 customers there. So definitely didn't make any impact. If you kind of as a founder, you want to make an impact and to change something that and founders really want to do it, to change something meaningful. streamOnce that didn't achieve it. And I think there is a reason for that. And it's not really about management, because again, there was not a lot to manage. It was really small. It was about what type of startups you want to start with. And we went on a market that was not proven and fairly small. So in a lot of ways, we've invented a problem that nobody needed us to solve. And I think that a lot of kind of tech geeks sometimes will do that, right? Like starting, the technology was amazing. So we loved the technology and we kind of played with it and we were kind of very impressed by ourselves, right? But nobody needed us to solve that problem. And to begin with, the market was not proven or even important. And I think that's why we failed, right? We eventually sold the company, and financially maybe it was a good deal. But from, building something that lasts for generations, which I think that TripActions and now Navan, we'll talk about the rebranding, Navan is that type of company. We're very, very far from having it.
So I think secretly I've always wanted to be a psychologist, but we mentioned children there, and psychologists always give everything to your childhood and how it impacted you. I do think everyone is a function of their histories. What do you think you're running from, Ariel?
Yeah, it seems. I think that if you take a step back, and it kind of leads to our founding story at TripActions. We wanted to innovate and to create this magic between the company's needs. So, stuff like reporting and compliance, all of the company's efficiency and the employees' needs, and really not compromise, really creating this innovation around this magic that you can create between the two. So creating software that people really, really like. And I think that there are a lot of companies out there. I think the one that comes in mind always are, for me, Salesforce and SAP, which are not innovating. I think the last time that SAP innovated something was in the 90s, and the last time that Salesforce innovated was in the beginning of 2000. And I'm looking at this, and besides the fact that I think it's embarrassing that companies that are kind of located in the middle of Silicon Valley have not been innovating for years. It's also what I'm running from, right? The one thing that scares me is that one day Navan will be that kind of a company that the only way that you innovate is through M&A and through using kind of your market dynamics and your power in the market to basically sell. And this really scares me.
Okay, so just jumping on that, I'm too interested. How do you retain innovation, speed, agility with scale? I mean, how many people are at Navan now?
We have 3,000 employees globally.
3,000. How do you retain that innovation and agility?
I think it's about decisions. I think, we kind of starting to feel comfortable with the travel innovation, right? That we really thought that we figured out how to create this magic between the company and the employees, how to book fast, how to support yourself fast. And Elad and I looked at this. Elad is my co-founder, and this was like 5 years ago. And we said, if we would have started TripActions again, we wouldn't do it like that. And out of this came everything that we did around payments and expense management. And 2 years ago, we looked at this again, and and we said, today, with machine learning, you can achieve a much better service by servicing people fast. Like, you cancel your flight. Are you going to get your tickets back or not? It's very hard to automate it, but we've managed to automate it with a lot of usage of smartness inside. We are calling it, we have an internal bot, we call it Cathy's IQ. And this is this thing that keeps learning and therefore keeps generating value for the users. So again, we kind of killed what we had and recreated it. So I think you keep this innovation if you have the courage, first of all, to look at the mirror and come and say, okay, what we had done up until now was relevant back then with our understanding that and the technology back then, but maybe it's time to kill it and change it. And we've been doing it times and again here. Actually, my co-founder right now is running 2 projects that are making basically a lot of what we've done to date obsolete. And I think that's how you maintain innovation.
I'm writing, so I don't. When you get to my age, you forget things, and so you write on your hand, and then you will remember. You mentioned that.
I think I'm older than you. I'm not sure, but I think I'm way older than you. So maybe
But you're a silver fox, my friend. My first question was: you mentioned some of the additional products you created over time. How do you determine, as a leader and strategist, between an additional product that you should chase and should do versus a distraction? It's so easy to be distracted. What's the difference between a product you should do and a distraction?
I think people by default are afraid of change, and they will do whatever it takes to not make a change. Even here in Silicon Valley, inside the tech companies. And, even last night at 8 p.m., there was a designer that actually showed me yesterday a design for a new unified app. We are actually releasing as part of the Navan rebranding. We are consolidating all of our technologies to one super app that will basically service you around the travel, payment, expenses, your personal trips, everything, and everybody can use it. And we have a design. The app looks amazing. You will see it on February 7th. We all been using it here in TripActions or inside Navan. And then this designer showed me a really interesting design, like something much better. And we are 2 weeks before the release. So what do you do? Right? And I've told the team, hey, I cannot unsee it. I saw this design now. I cannot unsee it. That should be our design. And this is scary. Like changing everything in the last minute is scary. But then here's the thing. We've agreed with the team that we'll do this change, but then for quite some time, we'll not do more design changes because now I want to focus on something else, other innovation in Navan, other two big projects that we have here. So this is kind of scary because I've said, hey, it's all about design. It's all about this thing. But now actually I'm going to deprioritize it in 3 weeks from now and do something else. And I think having the ability to make these decisions and bring the team with you, but not having this fear that the team will object to this. I think this is in the heart of companies that are innovating, but it's also in the heart of companies that are not innovating. You're sometimes too much afraid as a company from the change.
How do you get over being afraid? How do you bring people with you as well? Also, when you're deprioritizing something, you don't want those that were prioritized on it to feel like the unloved child. How do you get over that?
First of all, you never give up. And I'll give you an interesting anecdote. COVID started and we kind of lost all of our revenue, but decided to continue to be in the market and sell, do M&A, raise money, but the most important thing, innovate, like continue to innovate. But back then I've decided that the innovation would not necessarily be just about travel, but we're actually going to shift resources. We're going to shift designers, product managers, developers from the travel side to the expense management side. And that was a decision that actually the employees back then didn't like, okay, from a lot of various reasons. Again, we've talked about being afraid of change. So in that process, I actually lost most of my product team, okay? And, 2 years afterwards, I started to look at the data that showed how much both are picking up, like travel and expense management. And I remember that I told my co-founder, sometimes you need to do these decisions, even if it means that you're going to lose the team in the process, because that was the right decision. So sometimes you can bring people along with you, right? In most of the cases, that's what I do, and you can do that. But you cannot be afraid of the consequences, of the implications of doing what you believe intuitively, deep inside, that it's the right thing for the company.
Speaking of doing what you believe in the right thing for the company, you also mentioned killing projects. How do you determine which projects to kill?
Yeah, first of all, I think that I will bring it back to maybe kind of the lean startups kind of concepts, right? And I think what I really like in this concept is that you start something with a hypothesis and you start to measure it, right? And your entire purpose is not to develop the product, but to actually examine your hypothesis. And I think if you are strict about it, you cannot lie to yourself, right? You have an hypothesis. You're saying, hey, this is what I think that this product will do, or this feature will do, or this project will do, and this is how we think that the market will accept it. And then you put the right metrics and measurements in place, and you keep asking the question, is it happening or not? Is it happening or not? And you can do some pivots, and you can do some, right? So it doesn't mean that your first implementation will be the right one. But if you operate like that, it's not that hard to bring the team into a room and say, we had this hypothesis. It doesn't work. Let's move on. Let's do something else. I think if you do that, you are very capable of killing projects.
How long do you give it? Because there's that kind of, you can't do it too quickly. You need enough data, but then too many founders are afraid to kill it and give it way too long.
I think it's based on how important it is for your strategy. If it is fundamental for your strategy, you define your strategy as a company, and you're saying this thing. I'll give you an example. We give rewards for employees to save company money. So you come to our product, you try to book an hotel, it's in policy, and then we are telling you, but if you'll book something that is lower than the policy, we're going to give you rewards, right? It's part of the Navan rewards program. We are rewarding you to use us. We're rewarding you to save company money. You're also getting your Marriott loyalty points. So you get it all, right? I'm calling it you triple dip, right? Or with your credit card, if even you dip 4 times. So you're happy as an employee. But when we started the company, we had the same idea. Nobody used it. Nobody would click on the stuff that will give you the rewards, and nobody would actually redeem these rewards. So now the question is, are you pivoting or are you doubling down? And this feature, back then it was the entire company, was so important for our strategy that even though the hypothesis was incorrect, right? Nobody was using it. We're measuring it. We've decided to double down. We've decided to continue to pivot, to change the UI, to change the way that we are describing it, to change the algorithm, and to continue to double down. And eventually, everybody started to use it. So sometimes it is so important to what you do, to your set of belief, that you double down, and eventually, either you run out of cash, or you pivot, or you're being successful. And sometimes, it's more clear that, you did it, you tried it, but it's okay to kind of give it up and to move on.
Ariel, you mentioned, the time when COVID happened and your revenues went to zero. I just want to understand, take me to that moment. How did you respond? That is a oh shit moment.
Yeah. First of all, I personally, and sometimes, you could perceive it as maybe cold. I can move on fast. I can come and say to myself, okay, the plan that we had, the entire company that we had, okay, is not relevant right now. Okay, and so what does it mean? For me, and I'll get back to, I will mention this magic again and again because it's really the core of Navan. For me, March 2020, we lost all of our revenue. Obvious to me that we lost product market fit overnight. Nobody needs this product anymore, right? So for me, it got back to the basic question. I do believe that there is this new category of business software that is designed for people, basically creating people-centric product. That's something that I believe. We started the company with that belief. And I do believe that travel and expense is an important part of this. And I also think that people will travel in 2 years from now, right? Again, March 2020. So all of my beliefs are still there. This new type of software, T&E is important. People will travel in the future. So now what do? Do you kill the company? Do you hibernate the company, or do you double down? And if it's just random, probably you need to hibernate the company or kill it. But if you still have this set of beliefs and everybody around you, your investors, a big part of your employees still believe in it, you carry on, you continue. So you make some tough decisions, you cut costs. We did a pretty big layoffs. We've cut a lot of other costs, but on the same time, double down on innovation, double down on our go-to-market.
Can I be blunt?
Yeah.
How did you expand the business? And how did you raise at, double the valuation for, at the time, predominantly a travel company in the middle of COVID? It's incredible, but how?
It comes down to this set of beliefs, right? So I remember, in March 2020, the issue was not only that obviously we were going down very fast, but at that point, people thought that the entire economy will go down. Then, there was a change, and tech, I think, actually led the way of the economy to actually show that you're not going down as an economy, right? But at that point, there was so much pessimism, and I came to the team and to the board and was saying, okay, we're gonna definitely stabilize. We're gonna cut costs, right? No question about it. But we're gonna stay in the market and sell travel, right? And in fact, we're gonna expand to expense management and sell to T&E. And of course, the reaction would be, and we're gonna raise money. And of course, the reaction would be, but how are you going to do that? You're going to call a CFO right now and tell them you need to kind of use, the TripActions for travel, and they will tell you, we are not traveling right now. What are you talking about? But think about it. If you convince them, it was not hard to convince, the travel will come back. What's better than to do change management from this antiquated, Concur and GBT, American Express GBT. Nobody likes it. The only reason that people are staying with that is change management. So it's the best time to do it. Nobody's traveling. Nobody's expensing. Change now. And that was our pitch. And in April, it was very hard to do that because nobody would even pick up the phone. I think people were afraid that, for their lives. But May, June, July, as things started to open up, travel was still not happening, but people would sign up with us. Our biggest customers would sign up with us, like customers like Netflix, Heineken, Adobe, sign with us on these times where people were not traveling because, again, change management, the easy thing to do at that time.
So just so I understand, so then you see change management, like now's the time. You see logos convert, like amazing logos like you mentioned. And then you go to the board and say, hey, look at our sales, look at our logos, they're up and to the right. We want to raise a new round. How did that catalyze a new round?
Yeah, so I actually went and back then Greenoaks and Neil actually looked at this. And, it was the first time. I didn't know him before, but he looked at this and I basically told him that story. Hey, listen, we don't have revenue. We are burning a lot of cash because the company, think about a fairly scaled company. But here is our plan. And if you believe in our ability to execute, the only thing that you will need to bet on here is that travel will come back. So just decide, do you think the travel will come back or not? If you think the travel will come back, I think we are a really good investment right now because obviously it was in better terms than what you would have gotten if COVID was not around us. And that resonated. Now, I will tell you, we've talked probably with 30 investors. 28 of them told us that travel will never come back. I've talked with one of the biggest VCs here in Silicon Valley, right, and a very famous one and known one, and very good conversation. But they told me eventually, you know what? We actually don't think the travel will come back. And I said, okay, so if travel will not come back, it will be very hard for me to make a case for you to invest in the company, right? So, but the ones that had the courage back then I think it was only one bet. Will travel come back? And by the way, will it come back before we will go under or run out of cash?
Yes. And Ariel, this is our second show, so I can be more direct with you. Yes, I agree. But at 9.2 billion, as an investor as I am, I love this pen on my hand, you have to see a $40 billion company to get me excited. I need at least...
Yeah, first of all, the 9.2 billion, this is even more interesting, only came recently. So that came actually in the middle of recession after all of the correction. Back then, as the vaccine came, we actually did a $5 billion round, still an up round to pre-COVID. But again, it was kind of a up round, but small kind of addition back then, really based on what happens if travel will come back. Can definitely ask how Premji and our current investors invested in 9.2 billion when the entire market is correcting, and can it be $40 billion business? Listen, people are spending $1 trillion on travel a year. Most of this is not managed. Why is it not managed? Because nobody likes to use a Concur and American Express. So your employees are all over the place. Half of the employees are booking outside. You don't have control on it. You're always frustrated by this. Everybody are fighting all day long. We think, and our investor thinks, that we can capture the entire market for business travel and the entire market for expense. And if you take $1 trillion of spend and you think about how much money is out there, $9 billion is more suitable to the execution of the company today. But if you look forward 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, in 5 years from now, nobody is going to use Concur and Amex. Nobody is going to use Salesforce. Nobody is going to use software that makes you put something inside a ticket and then it goes through a workflow. And then, something happens. And the really interesting part of this, you need to force it. Your employees, your salespeople need to use Salesforce. Your travelers need to use Concur. Nobody is going to do this thing. People today are asking for something else. And the technology, especially with the mobile and AI, allows for it to happen.
So I love this like as a path to $1 trillion. My question is the other bet maybe, and I'm just like ideating with you, the other bet maybe is, will Ariel and Navan, or TripActions at the time, be able to make the transition from point solution, or more of a point solution, to, as you described earlier, a super app? What do you think are the biggest challenges in moving from point solution to super app?
Yeah, and it's kind of, you should probably ask me, I'll do your job for a second, I'm joking, but you should probably ask me why even changing the name? Because TripActions, the brand is good and people actually know the company, so why even do that? And I think,
Ariel, no, this is my turn. Why are you changing the name, Ariel? Great
exactly,
question.
and I'm saying it because I think it is related to your question, but we wanted to actually create this new category to show the way, to lead the way, and show all of the companies around, you have to develop a new kind of software, a software that is more inviting. So Navan, just the name, it's about navigation, navigating the world, and about Avant, right? This is really where the name is coming from. And it's a palindrome, right? So it's really inviting you from all directions, right? So it's really about us. It's about us inviting all of the employees all over the world to use Navan, inviting the company to achieve all of its goals, all of the company's goals, while the employees are participating in it. So it's magical. This is really the way that I'm thinking about Navan. And if you think about it in these terms, it's not only a point solution, it really solves a really big problem. Companies are spending 7% of their entire budget on T&E, so it solves a really big problem, but it also shows the way to companies that lost that way, to companies like Salesforce, like SAP. It shows the way for all of the companies around the world that today you can create really good software for the company and the employees.
What are the big challenges in moving from a more point solution to that super app?
Yeah, I think first of all, it's to bring it all together, right? So from think about it from a design perspective. You are booking a trip, right? And today you're going to book a hotel, car, and whatever, and you're going to do it again and again and again. So I travel a lot to London. We have our biggest team actually is of Navan is in London. And I'm traveling there a lot. And here's the thing. I'm always taking the same flight. I'm always staying in the same hotel. And guess what? I'm always going to the same coffee in the morning. And I'm kind of visiting the same kind of restaurants. So why do I need to book it again and again and again and again and again? It doesn't make any sense. I have all of this data inside Navan. We know that. Our machine learning algorithm, which we've implemented 6 years ago, knows that. So why not just asking you, rebook the trip. Like the trip that you're always doing, just book it. And maybe, the availability will be slightly different or the pricing will be slightly different. All of these things are easy problems to solve from a compute perspective. So I think that's kind of the point about the super app. I think that we are the best, and I mean it, the best all-in-one travel, expense, and payment solution. So we are the best by far. Bring it together to one app, but not just to one app to have one app. Like everybody can slap some things that are not connected into one app, but bring it to one experience that creates value to both sides. And, I talked about the employee, the traveler, but think about from a company perspective, the CFO can get full visibility all the time, real time, to any type of expense. Like any type of expense. This is something that is so valuable in any time, but think about it in recession.
Can I ask you, again, I've got more opinionated over time, apologies. When you think about Concur and Amex, do you think they're just going to sit back and go, fine, let Navan go do this, they're eating our lunch? Or how do they respond?
It kind of starts with what we said earlier. In the 90s, SAP and Concur innovated something, right? It was the first, I think, generation of IT software, this process and how do you get efficiency by running workflow and some approvals, and basically how do you treat people like packages. Like, I'm gonna, right? And it's not that surprising that Concur found themselves as part of SAP. It's like you are treating people like packages. And probably back then that was innovation, right? But the world has moved on. And these companies have lost the way around innovation. They don't know anymore how to innovate. They cannot attract the people that know how to innovate. Nobody would expect, OpenAI to be a research project inside SAP, right? So these companies actually, I would argue, will just die. That's what will happen because innovation happens. These companies lost their way around innovation, and they will just die because they are not relevant. Like we know, we joke that we are old, right? So we know a set of companies from the 90s. Take Siebel, for example, from the 90s that are no longer around, right? Why aren't they around? Because, Benayoff came in the beginning of 22 years ago. And by the way, he lied, right? He was saying no software, right? He was lying to people. He was like, there is software. There are developers inside Salesforce, and they just installed it in a computer that is in a bigger data center than your on-prem data center, right? So he kind of lied, but he got this attention. And how do I know that he's lied? Because I know that we are investing so much in software, so much in innovation. So there is software, and this software is driving the organization today. So I think these companies that innovated something in the 90s, Siebel, SAP, Concur, and these companies that innovated something 10 years later, Salesforce, ServiceNow, Workday, innovated back then. But then now, people want software like OpenAI, like Slack, like Navan. And by the way, look at the Slack story inside Salesforce. It doesn't really survive there, right? You can see by the minute how this software is becoming worse and worse and worse and worse under kind of a new type of company. So I actually really think that, you ask, will they respond or not? I don't think that they'll be around.
Can I ask, do they not just become sales machines though? They invest so heavily in sales and then change management and stickiness is strong. And that's why they keep growing. Like, look at the numbers. They keep growing.
Yeah, first of all, if I look at the numbers, I think both Salesforce and SAP actually specifically now are not growing and in fact declining, right? So that's specifically now. I think they do grow through M&A. That's the only power that they have. So it's basically M&A and the channel. I'm going to use my connection into IT, into enterprise IT, to continue and push whatever I purchased yesterday through this channel to that. And, I used to work for HP, and that was the play there, right? The HP software, that was the play. Let's keep buying companies and then push them through the channel. Over time, there are massive changes, right? For HP, it was the entire cloud. There are massive changes, and you are not going to survive it. And I think the massive change right now, again, powered by AI, is that companies want to have software that solves this problem without the need to enforce it, without the need to fight with their employees all day long. So I think, I respect actually their channel, these sales organizations that they've created, the ability to do M&A, but eventually, over time, innovation, technologies, breakthroughs, always winning.
Can they not buy their way to survival? If they put
I don't
$20
think
billion,
so.
You can't. If they put $20 million on the table for Navan.
Yeah, we are not for sale, and there is a reason for that. And by the way, we've kind of passed these tests several times. Other companies could have sent me to retirement a few times by just, buying us, and we didn't sell because we think that we have something very, very special that can change, right, the way that software works in organizations, and that's why we will not sell. Now, can they buy their way? Maybe yes, but you actually see that the answer is no. Like, think about it. The number 2 and number 3 in Salesforce, right? One of them is Stuart Butterfield, right? One of the best innovators in Silicon Valley, couldn't stay in Salesforce. Everybody thought that he would be the CEO of Salesforce, right? And he couldn't stay there, right? And again, by the way, I'm a Slack customer, and the team right now is looking for alternatives. Not because we love Slack, but you can see that over time, the search works a little bit worse. The buttons are moving to the wrong places. I care a lot about product and design, and I think it deteriorates over time. So can they buy their way into it? Yes, but to a point. Can they retain the team that made this innovation? They are proving that the answer is no. We cannot retain this team. Therefore, they're going to lose the entire product.
So what pitfalls do you have to avoid to prevent you from becoming the next Concur or Amex?
You are asking about my nightmare. My nightmare, right? My nightmare. I think there are probably, I don't know, a handful of companies that are capable of continuing to innovate in their 20th, 30th, 40th year anniversary. I think, by the way, look at Microsoft. It's so amazing how they kind of came out of like now they're like people are talking about them right now as Google. It's unbelievable, right? And I think, but again, there are a handful of companies, and by the way, leaders. And I think I've mentioned that innovation comes with leadership. Leaders that can pull this off, and I hope that we will be able to pull this off to continue to innovate even in our 10 years anniversary and our 20th anniversary and so on. And, it's not innovation for the sake of innovation. It's innovation that creates value, magic for our customers, right? And for the users that are using Navan. And if we do that, I'll be very happy. But, that's actually my nightmare, that we will not be like that and will become an SAP exactly in the same way that Salesforce became SAP. Salesforce, right, were the opposite of SAP, right? They were like, I think that Benioff cannot stand them. But over time, they became SAP. And I hope that we'll never become Concur and American Express.
You spoke about kind of product innovation driving value there. You chose to integrate OpenAI into your chatbot. Talk to me about that decision. What does it mean for the business? Why did you make that decision? And I guess, broad, how do you see the future of AI integrated into your company?
Welcome to the party, right? Elon, my co-founder, will go to events 6-7 years ago, a lot in the travel industry, and we'll talk about machine learning and AI, and people looked at him as like, what is he talking about? And then we were trying to explain it in value terms. So we'd say, our search, when you are trying to book a trip in TripActions, it takes you 5 minutes to do that because we know what would be the first 3 things that probably you're going to select, right? So we always said it, and I don't know if people fully understand it. A year ago, we launched our first bot. We are now naming this bot Eva, which is kind of part of Navan. And that bot today handles 30% of our support interactions. Basically, it behaves like a travel agent that will change your flight, will handle flight cancellations, will go and get a refund from an hotel. In fact, Navan's users, when they check out from an hotel, they don't need to go to the reception and get the receipt. We are, through a bot that we have, are actually calling the hotel, getting the receipt for them, automatically itemizing it, and automatically expensing it, right? That's how much today, right, our technology is effective around AI and machine learning. So now, and all of this was not powered by OpenAI. OpenAI did a huge leapfrog, right? So they basically leapfrogged above all of the AI technology and machine technology, including ours, right? So getting back to the innovation, would you kill what you have because there was a major development in compute, right, in software development? So we decided to do it. We decided to kill what we have, to use the infrastructure. The bot is the bot, the UI is the UI. The ability to change a flight comes from our API to change a flight, but then to use their technology. And in the results internally, I think that this Ava, will probably by the end of the year will replace 50% of our interactions in the contact center, and I think by the end of next year it will replace 90% of it. But here is the cool part. Then there is the 10%. The 10% that solves the really, really, really hard problems. You're stuck somewhere and somebody really need to help you out. And I think this is where we're going to actually dedicate all of our agents to do the stuff that really makes sense. So again, I'm excited. We're releasing right now in February the first version of Ava powered by OpenAI, and it would be amazing.
What makes OpenAI so much more effective than even your internal tools that you built for years and everyone else's stack? What makes it so much better?
Yeah, I think, people have a lot of opinions about it. I think it comes down to the data set. I think that, there was a lot of time, including with us, that was used to train your AI to be smart, right? So we used to call this thing Ava's IQ. So what is Evers IQ? It's this kind of, it's the brain, right? You do, we support somebody, and that support was successful or not. You can measure it through CSAT, through are they going to repeat and calling the call center again, stuff like that. So basically, you need to give the system this signal, was it successful or not, was the answer. So this training, I think, was the old way of doing AI, right? And that's how we operated. And I think that's, by the way, how 98% of the companies that did AI did it. I think what OpenAI did is that they proved that if you put a huge data set, right, inside this thing, magic will happen. I'm not even sure I actually don't know how this magic happens, by the way, but I think that magic will happen. And we see it, right? We started to ask, I'll give you an example of the magic. You could have gotten to the bot that we had before OpenAI and asked to book the Westin in New York, okay? And what Ava will do at that point, she would ask you, what do you want to book? But I just told you, the Westin, right? If you go right now to ChatGPT and ask to book the Westin in New York, it will ask you in what dates, okay? So ChatGPT realized that the Westin is a hotel, right? That's kind of what ChatGPT realized. Our entire IQ that was trained for years, like 3 weeks ago, right, with the old technology, would not be able to figure out that the Westin is an hotel, right? So I think that's kind of the essence of it. It's like they infused it with so much data, and that, by the way, GPT-3, think about GPT-4 and how much more data is there. So they infused it with so much data that now magic happens. And that's kind of what we see in real life, right, in the product that I'm using right now, and very soon will be available for all of our customers.
My question is, when we look at public markets, drive to cash flow, drive to profitability and economics, there's some uncomfortable realities that you as a business leader and me as an investor know, and that cuts out a lot of costs. And I know that you can absolutely deploy those costs to 10%, but you don't need half of them.
Yeah, I think that we are running a business, and what we've shown actually in the travel industry, that you can run this business today. I'll give you one thing. We usually don't share our financials, but I will give you one number. With pretty big numbers, our gross margins today are 75%. By the end of the year, probably it will get to 80%. Right?
Whoa,
so I'm talking about the youth.
That is high.
Exactly. And this is high generally. I think there are some tech companies that are doing better, but it is not it's not a thing in services companies, right? So how do you get these gross margins in a service-oriented business, like and usually you don't. By the way, you can look, some of our competitors are public, and you can look at their reports. You're talking about 55% gross margins compared to 75 today, going to 80, maybe even 85. 85 is not model deal, but maybe even 85 in the next 2 to 3 years. This is highly profitable business, right? If you think about it from a unit economics perspective. So what does it mean? It means that businesses, like always with innovation, will become more efficient, and the businesses that will adopt it will get to see another day. And the businesses that will not will vanish. And there is this famous Mark Andreessen, I think, blog about software is eating the world. I think software kind of ate the world, and the companies that didn't embrace it kind of died. And I think I would say maybe AI is eating the world and eating software, and companies that will not kind of join the party will not be around.
Do you worry about having such a core part of the business and margin structure, I'm sure, over time? Do you worry about having that provided by an external provider?
I think that eventually the bot can do one thing. It can answer questions based on all of the data that they have. Eventually, you need to operationalize it. You do need to change that flight, right? You do need to book that flight. You do need to have the suppliers' relationships. You do need to have all of these things. So I think the moat that we've created is actually not around that technology. The moat is around all of the infrastructure here that allows us to go globally, to service our customers globally, to provide one T&E report for all of the companies that are using us. That's the moat. Now, the other moat is more of a cultural moat do you have the courage to keep killing everything that you did because a new technology showed up and connect it to our infrastructure? And I think if you do that, whether it's external or internal vendor, it's not important. You can ask the same question about AWS, right? People used to employ DBAs. And I don't know, a lot of active people that were connecting like some cables to servers, and they stopped doing it. So I think it's the same thing.
So I look at businesses like kind of machines with levers, and when you think about 80% gross margins on yours today, you have a lot of leverage to go down to 60% and put 20% more in marketing brand growth. Like fucking burn the boats, field, go. Why didn't you do that?
So actually, it's interesting. As part of Navan and the rebranding, we are opening our product for everybody. And as part of this, so everybody can go and sign up to the product. As part of this, we are introducing new cost structure for different markets. So for example, on the lower end of the market, we are free, right? And that's new. We are completely free. You go in and you don't need to pay us. So I think if you're basically talking, should I use my gross margins to reach more people? Yeah. The answer is yes. And that's actually what we are doing. We are doing another thing. We are actually introducing our own loyalty club, which means costs, right? To make you more loyal to us. So again, how can we do all of these things? Because we've gained over the last 8 years, because of our bets on technology, on machine learning, on AI, we've gained a lot of efficiency. And when I'm working in an airport, I have to tell you this story. People at Navan here hate hearing this story because I cannot stop mentioning this story recently. I was stuck on an airplane in Buenos Aires with my family. The trip kept getting delayed on the airplane. You sit 4 hours there eventually, and we have a tight connection in Houston, and we have already missed the connection, right? So what we gonna do? And I'm using, obviously the Navan product, and I'm keep getting notifications of exactly what is going on. You're going to miss your connection, but don't worry, we took care of you. And by the way, that was infused both by our product technology, but also by this 10% that I'm talking about, the VIP travel agents that we have. This is the Reed and Mackay acquisition that we had. And, eventually I was in Houston standing in the immigration line, and I had everybody from the flight with me. All of them are booked on the 4:30 flight that just got canceled, by the way. I'm booked on the 9:30 flight. Do you know why? Because I used the best solution on the planet to manage my travel, and this is Navan, and I mean it. So this is me, my own personal thing. So now I'm waking up in the morning and I'm walking down this immigration line, and it's painful, and I mean it. And it's really not just money for me. It's painful to think that if all of these people would have used Navan, they wouldn't actually need to wait here in the Houston airport until 4:30 to the flight that actually got canceled. First of all, they'll know that the flight got canceled. I actually told them that it was canceled. And two, the system will automatically book them on the right flight. So it's painful for me that people are not using us and still using something that is really bad software, Concur, and something that is really bad service like Amex GBT. And to your point, I want to go to market faster, open it to everybody, and remove any type of barrier for entry. And we are going to use our economics for that.
You should give every employee a hoodie with a QR code that they should wear to airports so you can download it. So when you're walking past lines, you're like, hey, download it here. Like, that is a good
I think
role.
This is an amazing idea, and maybe I should have you joining our marketing team. Like, with this idea, I'm actually going to talk about this with the team later today. It's a really good idea.
Ariel, you're not the first person to talk about marketing with me. My question to you is, I'm fascinated. You said about kind of introducing the loyalty scheme there that's your own. How do you define a retained user?
Yeah, I think that we have very loyal customers and install base, but I want them to feel great, that they didn't compromise if they booked through their corporate recommended solution or enforced solution. In fact, I don't want this thing to be enforced. And people really care about loyalty. So we are making sure that they will always get their loyalty from, the hotels chains, from the airlines, but also will get their benefits if they save company money, but also from us. And that's kind of getting more of their loyalty into us, into Navan.
But when you look at Facebook, they said when you get 5 friends, then you're like a retained customer. I think it's 3 orders on GoPuff, you're a retained customer. What's your understanding of what a truly retained customer is?
Yeah, we have, because of the expense side, we actually know if you booked outside, right? So we know if you booked our trip outside. And that's the issue. Like, if you know that you're getting 100%, what we are calling inside attainment of the company's budget, we know that we are retaining the employees and the customers time and again, not just as a big customer that maybe uses us 50% of the time, but retaining them all the time. So we are comparing this data all the time, and we have a really good idea of who is a user and also who decided to not use us. And if you're not using us, we're getting curious about it. Why? And we'll contact you. We'll call you. This is something that we started when we started at the company and all the way till now. And based on their feedback, we are introducing stuff like the loyalty club that I've mentioned.
What % of customers have 100% attainment?
It's I think that it goes by segment. More of the higher end of the market, what we are calling named enterprise and even mid-market, will get 100% attainment. As you start to go down market, you are getting more towards the 80% attainment. And even that number, if you go and compare it to the industry standards, that's compared to 50 to 40 to 50% attainment. So this is significantly more than what everybody else are getting out there.
It totally is. I've had so much fun with this. I want to do a quick fire round. So I say a short statement, Ariel, and you give me your immediate thoughts. Does that sound okay?
Let's do it.
Okay, my friend, what does success mean to you when I say success?
I would say making my kids proud. That's the most important thing for me, that they will be proud of me.
I love that. What does being a great father mean to you?
Great father, actually, I think it's everything. I'm spending a lot of time with my kids. Although I'm running a company, the thing that I like to do the most is to spend time with my kids. It means everything to me.
What opportunity have you not taken with TripActions, now Navan, that you wish you had have taken?
I think that had I known how things around travel will happen after COVID, I would have invested even more and be more aggressive on gaining more share during COVID. So I know that we more than tripled the business over COVID. I would have gone much more aggressive if I had this hindsight of when COVID will end and in what kind of scale.
What's the most painful lesson that you've been through, but you're also pleased to have been through it for the learnings?
I think it's really scaling up the company before COVID. We are growing fast, 5x over a year over a year, very hyped. And I think we allowed some people to get into the company that are usually joining the hype. And I've learned it the hard way. Will never happen again. I'm happy that I learned it. And I'm happy that also I had the opportunity to reset it during COVID.
What's the single biggest tip you give me on hiring? I suck at it.
Hiring, first of all, embrace the fact that you're going to make mistakes and just do the correction fast.
Where is Amex in 10 years? Is this winner take all?
First of all, it's Amex GBT, so that's the travel side, and I don't think that they're going to be around. I think it is a winner takes all, but even if it is not, the other one will definitely not be Amex. It would be a tech company that is hyper-servicing the company and the employees.
What would you most like to change about the world of venture?
I think there is something powerful here, which is the echo kind of chamber, but it's also what kind of creates a lot of frustration. I think that sometimes people need to open their minds outside of Silicon Valley.
Final one, my friend. 2028, okay? We're going to sit down again. I know, fucking futuristic. I'll be a silver fox then. But 2028, where will we be then? Paint that picture for me.
Everything around us will be more efficient because of AI. And maybe the opposite of what we think, all of us will be smarter because of AI. It's almost like we got, you remember that we had this calculus, computer, when we were kids and doing mathematics. I think this is the new type of that thing. It will make all of us smarter.
Ariel, my friend, I've loved doing this. Thank you so much for joining me, and this has been so much fun.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. The time really, flew by here. It was amazing. Thank you.